Hi, welcome to another Leeds Guitar Studio video. Today we're going to have a quick look at some buying advice for acoustic guitars and also electrics. What to look out for and the whys and wherefores of what's what on the instrument. So here I have my trusty Faith Venus acoustic guitar, and I'm just going to walk you through the various bits on it and what you would look out for when buying your own. So I'm going to start at one end and work my way along. It's logical. So here we have what's commonly referred to as the headstock, and its main purpose is just to hold the tuning pegs or machine heads in place. Generally we want to look for enclosed units like this, and they should feel smooth, you know. And then the strings pass over the nut here. Now the nut is a critical part of the guitar, and the important thing with the nut is that it's cut correctly. The slots need to be well, obviously the correct spacing apart, but also the right depth. And there's a quick test you can do with that. You can just get a little dink noise when you do that. It means they're cut just above the height of the first fret with a bit of play. If they're cut too high, then it's very hard to get a playable action. And action refers to the height of the strings from the actual fretboard. So it's very hard work if it's not done correctly. So then we're moving on to the neck itself. Obviously you've got the actual neck and the fretboard, as it's known, which have got these metal things in, and they are indeed the frets. And again, they're a critical part of the instrument in terms of its playability. Basically, they should be finished off nice and smooth, so that when you vibrato a string, i.e. rubbing it up and down, you don't get any grinding or kind of noises out of that. Smoother the better. And then you've got your side dots here, which are invariably at the 3rd, 5th, 7th and 12th frets, and then kind of repeating above that. And then you may or may not have inlays. Acoustic guitars generally do have some inlays, usually dots, or in this case diamonds. And the thing to look for in terms of the actual playability is if you pick any string and just basically go up the neck, 1 fret at a time, playing right behind the fret, checking that each fret plays cleanly without any buzzing, and that's usually a good sign. If there's a lot of buzz, it may not be that the guitar's defective in a way, it's just not set up, i.e. it's not been adjusted correctly to play right. And one of those crucial adjustments is what's called the relief in the neck. So the neck is generally never perfectly straight. It's usually concave to some degree or other. So the strings actually have some room to vibrate without rattling against the frets. And you can check that by holding down the string at the 1st fret and then at the last fret, and then you can just visually eye up the space between the straight edge of the string and the fret itself at the 7th fret. And carving sort of recommend it should be about the thickness of a playing card, but you may find it slightly more, but that gives you a general idea of the bow, or the concave bow. Should never be convex. You've got a real problem if it is. And that's adjusted normally either here at this end or sometimes at this end with a truss rod which runs through the neck. So again, it's one of these things that's part of a setup, along with the height of the bridge. And these are the bridge saddles. It's bridge saddle singular in this case. And again, that can be raised up or down. So you've got 3 elements essentially. You've got the height and the accuracy of the nuts cuts, the actual bow of the neck, and the height of the bridge, which affect the playability, or as I say, the action, the height of the strings, and also whether you're getting buzz on those strings off the frets or not. It should play consistently throughout the neck. Other than that, yeah, you've got the body of the guitar, which is essentially a drum. You know, you've got the top, which vibrates in sympathy with the strings and produces the volume and the tone, and the sound hole that pushes the air out. And then on some, you will have some electronics of some sort. Very often that's the case nowadays. So basically this has got a pickup under the bridge and also a microphone which you can blend. I'm going to dwell on that. The other thing to look out for, it's always a good idea to get one with a cutaway. It just gives you access to the higher frets, which you will almost certainly need at some point. It's quite frustrating. You're trying to get to those and you just can't. So that's always a good idea. And then strap pins, which I only have one on because I never play it stood up. It's only if you're going to wear it with a strap. And that's the anatomy of an acoustic guitar and what to look for. So buzzing equals bad. the take-home message. Okay. So next we'll look at electrics. Okay, so moving on to the electric guitar segment of this. Here I have my old Strat, which doesn't get played much anymore, but it's still a beautiful instrument. And much of what I was just saying about the acoustic guitar applied to the electric, particularly the neck, the actual strings. So you know, all the stuff about the nut, the neck relief, and the bridge. Very similar. The bridges do vary on the electrics, usually a little more precise. You'll have individual saddles for each string, and they're all totally adjustable. So there's a lot more precise control, which is generally why you can get a bit of lower action on electric. But other than that, all the same things, you know, basically is each string playing without any buzzing or anything like that. So onto the headstock briefly. I always recommend people get a guitar with locking tuners, or if not, retrofit them. So a locking tuner is very simple. It says what it is on the tin, really. Instead of multiple winds around the string post, you just put the string through once and clamp it down with that little turn knob, which pins the string in place. It does make life an awful lot easier. You can change strings in much quicker, and also the whole thing's much more stable, particularly if you're using a vibrato bar, a whammy bar. Okay, so moving on to the actual electrics, which is what makes it an electric guitar. Here we have the pickups, which are the kind of business end of it and the kind of critical part of it. And a pickup is really very simple bit of technology. You've got multiple winds of copper wire, usually sort of in the region of 10,000 wire turns, as they're called, surrounding magnetic pole pieces or a magnetic bar underneath. And that basically induces a very small electrical current when the string vibrates in proximity to it. And that gets sent out via all this business to your amplifier, which, guess what, amplifies it, makes it bigger. So here we have what's called a single coil, and that is because it's got one coil. Now they have a particular sound. It's much more, it's much clearer and thinner, you might say, but bell-like, and lots of nice top-end harmonics. But the only problem with that is they do pick up interference. So if you're next to fluorescent lights or old cathode ray tube televisions, not that you're likely to be nowadays, or radio signals, they will act as an antennae, and you'll get royal cars coming through your guitar rig at a gig. So that is the downside. But there are ways around that nowadays. Then in the bridge position here, we have a humbucker, which is basically two of these side by side, and they're wired in a way that the mirror image and one is out of phase with the other, whatever. But basically, it means they're much quieter, and that means that they also see a wider section of string, so the sound is usually bigger and fatter. And so a guitar like this is quite nice because you've got a balance of the two. And that means that you can use this selector switch here, which again does what it says on the tin, to choose whichever pickup you want. And of course, a pickup nearer this end, nearer the bridge, will be thinner sounding top here, more trebly, than one near the neck, which would be generally warmer and fatter sounding. So between the two, I can kind of select. This has got all sorts, because there's just two pickups. So that would be both, And then moving on to these controls. Now this has actually got two volume controls, despite the fact it says tone there. But it's what it says. So when you're in the shop and you're doing this, just switch back and forth, listen for any crackles or cutouts. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Dirt gets in there, oxidisation, all the rest of it, which very often is very easily fixed with a quick spray of contact cleaner, not WD-40, which will solve the problem. It's not a major issue, but it should be on continuously. If it's cutting in and out, that means there's some wiring loose. Again, not terminal, but make sure they fix it. So yeah, and then you've got a tone control, which basically rolls off the top end. Now, on mine, it's not doing anything, because it's disconnected. And then that all goes all through that and comes sent out here to the output jack into your cable. And again, they vary. The other main, this is what's called a blade selector. The other main sort is like a toggle switch style thing that you might get on a Les Paul and the many variants of that. All do the same thing. But you're basically looking for them to be solid and noise free. If they're not, then try and knock some money off. Get them to fix it, you know. So normally these things aren't terminal. It's all serviceable or rewirable. Anything like this breaks, you buy a new one, you put it in. It's like a car, you know. The clutch goes, well, it's going to be slightly less expensive than replacing a clutch, but you get the drift. And other than that, just use your instincts. If it feels right, if it sits well, it feels comfortable. This is why I like Strats. No, it doesn't move. I'm not having to put any effort into holding it up. That's an important thing as well. Just should be like, just sit there nicely. And again, when you use it with a strap, you just adjust the strap so that it pretty much stays in the same position you might have it sat down. So there's no big difference between playing stood up and sat down. And that's the general advice for buying a guitar. But you know, trust your gut and do some reading, and you'll be fine. Laters. Bye.